Testing. Test. We're going to be getting started in 5 minutes, so if you could please make your way to your seats. We'll be starting in 5 minutes. Hello. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could please make your way to your seats, we're going to get started here. All right, if I get everybody's attention, we're going to get this show on the road. Could somebody want to hit their little glass? Anybody want to do that? No? Hey, everybody, if we could please make our way to our seats, we're going to get started right now. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Atlanta Young Republicans. We are the largest chapter in the Southeast. Some say top 5 in the country. We don't know because the numbers have not been released. But we are the number 1 large chapter in the country, awarded last year by YRNF. So you are in a great place this evening. We really appreciate you being here. My name is Alan English. I am president of this wonderful organization. We've got a very exciting topic, a really good panel this evening, very relevant to things that are going on today. But I want to go through a couple of announcements here before we get started. But first, I would like to recognize a very important guest. Y'all are in the presence of basically young Republican royalty. We have here in this front row in the black suit, the chairman of the Georgia Young Republicans, Andrew Abbott. Please welcome Andrew Abbott.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, Alan doesn't know this yet, but y'all are the 3rd largest chapter in the nation, and the 2 cities with chapters bigger than y'all are about 10 times the size, and none of them beat you by more than 50 members. So I think if you're in a city of 600,000, and New York is a city of 10 million, and they can only do 50 more members than you. What are they doing? I mean, come on, seriously. So give your chairman a hand. Give yourselves a hand. There's so many incredible young Republican leaders in this room tonight. Winslow Robbins, Skylar Atkins, Seth Daniel, so many who make this chapter work. And if I didn't say your name, I'm sorry. It's just because I'm stupid and have a bad memory. I used to fight for a living, and I got hit in the head one too many times. I know tonight is a serious topic, and I'm going to get off the stage here in a second, but I want to say one thing. In Ukraine and tonight, the Russian separatists in the Donetsk Republic have brought forward long-range artillery, which are now allowing them to shell the city of Sevastopol into submission. Sevastopol's probably going to fall, according to the war times, in 72 hours. Men are supposedly, according to CNN, kissing their families goodbye and telling them this is it. They're never going to see them again. The real enemies of freedom are not in our friends that we have disagreements with here. They're not in this room. They're not in the GOP. They're not even in the Stacey Abrams headquarters or in Washington, D.C. The real enemies of freedom are in the Kremlin in Moscow. They're in Tehran and the Expediency Council. They're in Pyongyang. They're in Beijing. So remember that. The people here, even when you disagree with them, even on a serious topic like tonight, these are your allies. So treat them like that because someday we may need them. Thank you all so much. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate you being here tonight. I do want to, we're going to get started here. I have just 2 other quick announcements. I'm very pleased. This really was the first time that I had heard that. The 3rd largest chapter in the United States. Many of that is thanks to our VP of events, Winslow. Where is Winslow? Membership. What did I say? I'm sorry. What did I say? Did I say membership? Whatever. VP of membership, excuse me. It's been one of those days.
I don't want to steal Savannah's thunder because she's the events girl, so it's okay. Hey, y'all, I'm Winslow Jones. Sorry, that's the married last name. I'm the VP of membership. I've been the VP of membership for the past 2 years. So a little bit about the benefits of membership. So we really do encourage our premium membership. So you have to be 18 to 40 to purchase the premium membership. And it's a one-time fee for $65. Okay, so you don't have to pay an annual fee to be a premium member. And it lasts until you're 41 years old. So you get discounts to our paid events. We have about 3 or 4, sometimes 5 paid events to AOR events that you could get a big discount to. Christmas party being at the end of the year, and that's the big event that's we dress up, have a good time, so you get a big discount to that. We also may, in the next year or 2, have some opportunity drawings for Braves tickets, maybe even a governor's mansion tour. Only members can be eligible for that opportunity drawing. Also, you get a really cool name badge right here if you're a premium member as well, and really you're just supporting us being able to do these events and having these amazing speakers where you have opportunities to ask questions and really know what's going on. And really, it's just a big, happy family. I've met some of the best friends that I've had in the past 2 years. If you're looking to network and make friends, and we all kind of share these common values. So glad to have you if it's your first time, or if you're not a member and you've come to a few events and you're here now, we're glad to have you. So thank you so much. And I'll be up over there if you're interested and had any questions about membership. I'll be up at the front after the meeting. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Winslow, our VP of Membership. One thing I just want to give her a quick shout out. Y'all probably don't know this, but last year we signed up 120 new members under her leadership. That is an average of 10 new members a month. By far a record for us. I would assume that is a state record as well. So great job, Winslow. I know there are some people in here who like to talk about policy. They like to, get involved and discuss their ideas. So we have a very exciting new event that we're going to announce. I'm going to bring up the leader of ACT Atlanta, Megan Smith, to announce a new event series that we're going to be doing every single month.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alan. As Alan mentioned, my name is Megan Smith. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I run a political Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. I run a political advocacy group for conservative women here in Atlanta called ACT Atlanta. And we are so excited to be starting a new discussion initiative partnering with AYR. We are calling it Republicans on Tap. And we will be meeting once a month up at Park Bench in the Battery. And Republicans on Tap was born out of the idea that we need a space to discuss the issues and policies that are relevant to our demographic today. So with that, I do want to emphasize that this is a discussion group and not a debate group. With that being said, the reason is twofold. One is that we're all friends here. We're all on the same side. And so we want to keep things friendly between our members and preserve our existing relationships. But in addition to that, our purpose with this discussion group is to educate people. We want to give you the chance to explore new issues and learn new things and take away talking points that you can replicate out in the world. So, like I mentioned, we're going to be meeting once a month. This is a members-only event. So you either have to be a member of ACT Atlanta or AYR or both, because you can be a member of both. And we will be meeting at Park Bench. Doors open at 7. Discussion will start at 7:30. This is limited to 20 people right now. I think we're at about 50% registration already, and we just opened this on social media like a couple days ago. So if you would like to come, which I hope you do, tickets are available on ACT Atlanta's social media as well as AYR's. Is it on your website as well? Also on the website, so you can go to that Eventbrite page, snag a ticket. We will be asking for your ticket at the door to ensure that we only have 20 people at that event. And I'm just so excited to kick this off. Thank you to Alan, to all of AYR for being willing to go on this journey with us, and I hope I see you guys there.
Thank you, Megan. Ooh, that was loud, sorry. Well, great. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We're looking forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. Only 20 of you guys can be there, but we're looking forward to seeing you. Well, again, like I said, we have a really exciting event this evening, a really good topic. I'm sure unless you live under a rock like Joe Biden, you know that there is a possibility that within the next week, Roe versus Wade could be overturned, or in some form or fashion. Yes. We were hoping that this would be the greatest timed AYR topic ever and that they would be announced today, but they let us down. That is okay. We hope to find out in a week. But I think with a lot of it in discussion with people who might not be Republicans and some who are, there's confusion on what does that mean? Does that mean day one that, abortion is outlawed across the country? No. And so tonight I want it to be an educational discussion so we can discuss what does it mean here in Georgia, should Roe be overturned, and what is the future for us here in the state. So we have a great panel this evening. We have Senator Marty Harbin of District 16 in Tyrone and Griffin, and Elizabeth Reed of the Georgia Life Alliance. If y'all could please come join me up here, we'll get things kicked off. Wherever y'all want to sit. Wherever y'all want to sit.
You want the title? Rose between two thorns.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys both for being here tonight. This is a very important topic. I think something that clearly everybody here is very excited to learn more about. So I'm going to kind of alternate specific questions back and forth to you guys. The first question for you, Elizabeth, is what exactly is the Georgia Life Alliance? What do y'all work on day to day?
Well, thank you for having me. Georgia Life Alliance is the state affiliate to the National Right to Life. So we're the group here that kind of does, all the things that the National Right to Life movement is working on. And, we have some of our own ideas here at the state level too, that they tolerate. But we do lobbying, policy, education, and we're trying to build a culture of life so that abortion is not only illegal, but just unthinkable, so that all the reasons that a woman would consider getting an abortion, they don't exist anymore. So homelessness, not enough accommodations on college campuses, abusive relationships, things like that. We try to address all of those issues and make Georgia a state that values life from conception to natural death.
So let's say day one, Roe's overturned, whatever day it is next week. What exactly would happen here in Georgia, and if you know throughout the country, if you have an idea, but what specifically would that mean for us here in Georgia?
So Georgia's heartbeat bill is currently in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. They issued a stay while they waited for a decision from the Supreme Court in the Dobbs case. So the minute that the Supreme Court issues a ruling in the Dobbs case, essentially nothing changes in Georgia until the 11th Circuit issues a ruling in the heartbeat bill. We suspect that they want to uphold it, but they are waiting on an official decision in the Dobbs case because they don't want to word things in a way that could unintentionally conflict with what the Supreme Court says, so they're waiting to determine it. But once our heartbeat bill is upheld, for the first time in state law, personhood will have been granted to the unborn child under the 14th Amendment.
So you mentioned the heartbeat bill. This next question is for Senator Harbin. Specifically, what does the heartbeat bill restrict? I know a lot of states have different legislation, different restrictions. What does that restrict here in the state of Georgia?
Well, thank you. I think what you have to realize is that Georgia's heartbeat bill was really different from other pro-life bills around the country. I saw today that Louisiana, their governor, signed a very strong abortion bill. But more than anything, it gave personhood to the baby. And that's something that many bills it restricted, but we are giving tax breaks, benefits to the baby, and we're giving personhood. And from what I understand, part of the Roe v. Wade issue, even when it was argued, was the issue of personhood. And when you look at the vastness of what this affects, 63 million abortions have taken place since 1973. I was graduating high school. Most of you, none of you probably were even born. And I think the thing about it is that you've grown up with abortion being the norm. And for us, or for me at that time, I think a lot of people were really asleep at the wheel, realizing what Roe v. Wade did and how it affected. But I think that if you look at what happened in Georgia, Georgia is one of those, and I think maybe the reason the court's holding it is this issue of personhood is not in other bills, but I think it's where Georgia will lead the way on that. I think the other part that we forget is the 10th Amendment, is we are seeing if the courts rule, which I believe some of the greatest things that, probably the greatest thing that Donald Trump did was the appointments to the courts. And we're going to see more of this ongoing, and I think that's really kind of scares the other side. But that this 10th issue, we have given so much to the federal government in power that this needs to revert back to the states. And I think that's part of what we're seeing here. But the biggest part, I think, is this: when we give personhood to that baby, it really changes the game from that standpoint. It really does in that respect.
I got a follow-up question for that. So again, let's just kind of go into the mindset that right now that Roe's been overturned. With that precedent being set, what are there plans in the legislature to up the ante on the heartbeat bill, if you will, or call a special session, or increase the restrictions? Like, what would be the future of potentially new heartbeat bill type legislation?
I think right now, with it tied up in the 11th Circuit, we're going to wait to see what they do. They're waiting to see what the Supreme Court is doing, and I would agree because of the precedents that are going to be set. I think it's very interesting is the reaction of the other side. When we're talking about needing security, they're talking about the National Guard being called out for security. We're a nation of law and order, and that's the issue that's really concerning to me is when we see the threatening of a Supreme Court justice. That's absolutely intolerable. That's, no matter what, we don't tolerate that type of thing. And I think that's the part that when we see the reactionary side come when they don't get what they want. And I think this Supreme Court is going to see not just this issue they're dealing with, but other issues that are going to come back. And I think we've got to really come back to this, is that the states created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states. And we've got to realize that that's how it was set up in the beginning. And we've allowed the federal government too much leeway inward into our states. And we need to push that back. And this gives us an opportunity to look at that, I believe.
This next question's for Elizabeth. I've heard people say about organizations like GLA that, when Roe's overturned, that your mission is done. You've won, your work is done. But I mean, I know everybody in this room knows that is not the case. It's not the only focus that GLA and groups like it have. So what other things do y'all focus on, and how will your mission change should Roe be overturned?
That is actually a really good question. First, GLA's mission would not change at all, and our work would get a lot harder, actually. When Roe is overturned and personhood is granted to the unborn child, our work really starts. We're going to have, after the Texas heartbeat bill was not struck down by the Supreme Court, that week that it was in effect, we were on the phone with GLA's equivalent in Texas, talking to them, and they were telling us we had no idea it was going to get upheld. We weren't ready. And I'll be really honest with you. That answer frustrated me and made me so angry. I was like, what do you mean you weren't ready? Because GLA, Brian Kemp, Ed Setzler, Renee Unterman, and all of the senators and representatives like Marty Harbin who worked on the heartbeat bill wrote it expecting it to be upheld. And we have worked in the years since then to make sure that Georgia is ready to be a post-Roe state. We've passed things like the Rape Survivor Custody Act, so that when a woman is victimized, she cannot be further victimized by her attacker when he tries to seek custody of a child that was conceived. We've passed things like Gracie's and Simon's Law, which protects children with disabilities in the womb and after birth from medical discrimination. We've passed things like Betsy's Law, which is named after my daughter, who I placed for adoption when I was 15, which would allow nonprofit organizations to provide housing for pregnant and new mothers for up to 18 months after birth. And I mean, our work is so far from over.
That's a good answer. I do hear that from people constantly, so I'm glad, and I hope everybody here understands the important work that they do outside of fighting Roe. As questions for either or both, if y'all both want to chat on this, in states where abortion gets outlawed in its entirety, or even in our state where it wouldn't be entirely outlawed, how can we shift resources or fight the narrative that we're pro-birth and not pro-life? I hear that constantly. Republicans don't care about the baby once it's born on its own. And we know that's not the case. So how can we fight that narrative and maybe shift resources to address that?
Well, I think here's the part about it. I see the abortion issue as much like what happened with the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War with TV brought us into the war zones where we were seeing people killed, we were seeing people murdered and killed live real time in front of us. I believe that a lot of what happened in 1973 was that nobody really realized what abortion really was like. I would encourage you is that before you pass judgment on where even you stand, I would encourage you to watch, and this was an old one, is The Silent Scream by Charlton Heston. And he says, if you're watching this video and it is an actual abortion, when you see what happens, that it's inhumane with what happens. The other is the movie Unplanned, if you've not seen that, about Abby Johnson. She was the Employee of the Year with Planned Parenthood. And I have heard her personally, and I would encourage you to watch the movie because it's about her life and understanding what happened. The things we saw with Planned Parenthood, where they were actually, there is the selling of baby parts. That, in my opinion, is absolutely an atrocity that should not take place in this nation. We need to see that. The movie Roe v. Wade, you get an idea into what it was like at that time. And I will believe for most of the conservatives of that day, in 1973, the only, and I'm going to say this, the only religious organization really standing strong was the Catholic Church. The rest of us were silent on the issue. And I believe that silence is not golden, it's yellow. And we need to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. I believe that is our greatest responsibility. We're to speak for those who can't even speak. So I think part of it is when someone says, I believe in abortion, I'll say, have you ever seen an abortion? Have you ever talked to someone who has had an abortion? I think that's the part that I would tell you. I believe that the truth will set you free into truth, but you need to be exposed to it. And like I said, it's one thing to see someone die on TV. It is another thing to see that take place before your eyes. And I believe that's the part that some of the things that our technology has brought us, it has numbed us to reality of what's going on and what's happening. That 63 million, 6 times the population of Georgia, has been lost. And I think that has, and if you look at it worldwide, we've got, for Japan, other countries are dying for people to have children, and they're not having children because of what the cost is. But I think we need to understand what that process looks like in real time, in real life, and I think we might change our mind on what we believe is right and what is wrong.
Basically, how do we fight the narrative that we're pro-birth and not pro-life? Sorry, we're talking. Okay.
I think we fight the narrative of being pro-birth instead of actually pro-life by doing the things that we've been working on. You know, Senator Harbin was one of the senators who worked on the Rape Survivor Custody Act and voted for Betsy's Law and has voted to expand pregnancy Medicaid. I think we fight that narrative by putting our money where our mouth is. You know, some of the bills that Senator Harbin has worked on and that GLA has worked on, we worked on because the lobbyist for the largest abortion clinic in Georgia came to us to ask for help because it was a pro-woman, pro-baby, pro-pregnant women in trouble bill, but they couldn't get any traction because Republicans wouldn't talk to them. And so they came to us like, hey, would you help us with this? And it was actually a really pro-life bill. It was expanding pregnancy Medicaid, expanding the benefits that a pregnant woman who needs help can receive under WIC and TANF, and adding protections in the family violence statutes for dating relationships where a child has been conceived. All of those things are pro-life, and they don't always sound very Republican, but it's what we should be doing because God has called us to speak for the voiceless and defend the defenseless and be a father to the fatherless.
I think the other issue is that we need to work on this is the issue of adoption. Because I know so many people who are wanting to adopt, and I bet you if I've asked for hands in this room, there's people who are adopted. And realizing that you lived in the most dangerous time to really be born is because your life could be taken. And I believe that we need to do everything we can to help adoption. We need to help the parents. We need to get it out of the government's hand, if you will, and into those people who are wanting children. And what's sad is we're seeing families go to foreign countries, going to places when there are children here. And we need to make that as easy as possible for them to be able to adopt. And we need to help it because if we can get them out of the government system and into private care, it is so much better financially for the state and for all of us if we can do that. So I think we need to really work, if anything, is the issue of adoption. How do we make that path as easy as possible? It should not be something that's hard.
Both of those are excellent points. I do want to reiterate something that Senator Harbin said. If you haven't seen a video or at least read about what an abortion actually is, it is grotesque. And it was probably 5 or 6 years ago that I did not see a video, but I heard testimony in Congress from a doctor who had performed, I think it was 10,000 or plus abortions, and he describes in intimate detail exactly what happens and what goes on, and it's truly barbaric. So if you have not read about that, I highly recommend it, no matter what your opinion on everything is. One last question on if Roe is overturned, and then I have a couple on if it's not overturned. I don't know if y'all saw a few weeks, or I guess it was about a week ago, Joe Biden actually fell off a bicycle. Totally unrelated, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. Yeah. The bicycle was not moving. I want to make sure everybody knows that. It was 0 miles an hour, and he fell off. Yeah. But actually, around the same time, President Biden was on a wonderful television program, Jimmy Kimmel, a great Republican. And I didn't watch it because I just don't like to watch Jimmy Kimmel. But from what I understand, he said, the president said that should Roe be overturned, that there would be some executive order, some executive action taken to protect abortion. Yes. So what can be done, I guess, what can he do, and what can we do to prevent that from happening? Whoever wants the question.
First of all, in November, we need to take over the House and the Senate to put a stop to what he's doing, because without that, we can't make it happen. And I was mentioning this, Georgia has over 6 million voters that are registered. Only 1.2 million voted in the primary. That means out of 6 people, 1 voted. Now, if they're going to vote Democrat, just leave them alone and let them alone. But we need to find the Republicans out there, or even, and I will say this, one of the things I see right now is that the issue of Democrat and Republican has really changed, because there is no center and there is no right for the Democrats. They just don't have a place to go. And there are many conservative Democrats that I think are going to cross over. They see gas prices, economy, and all the other things that have just been fumbled. That's the best way I can put it. We look at Afghanistan. I've got military guys says, I voted Democrat in the last election. I won't do that again, just because of the way the military was handled. So I think those are the things that we've got to get control at the federal level to be able to do anything. That means we've got to work and get out. In November, we need to win this thing and take back over what should have been ours, and do this. When we win, not stop. We need to keep moving.
And I'll add to that, we must retain control of the state legislature. So make sure that you're voting for every election in your district. It's very important that we retain control of the state here. So I'm going to ask a couple questions about, let's say, Roe is not overturned, and then I'm going to open it up the floor to you guys if you have some questions. So just be thinking about any questions that you may have. So the first question, I guess we'll get this to Senator Harbin. So let's say Roe's not overturned. What are the prospects of the heartbeat bill in court?
I'm not the 11th Circuit, but I think what we then do is we look at other ways in which to shut them down, whether that's using our health department, zoning, whatever we can do. There are ways to address the issue outside of that if we have to. I think the other is that we've got to work to say that, I'll share this story. I have a young lady who was 16 years old when she got pregnant, and her mom was a good friend of mine, and we walked through together that process. I saw her the other night. She was at a Republican meeting, and she's now probably 32 years old, has a son, and she went back to school after high school and got a degree to be able to do sonograms. And she sat and she says, "You don't believe how good God is, but I am every day doing sonograms, and every day I have the opportunity to share with some young ladies that I've been where you have, and I want you to see a picture of my son." And I will tell you this, if you will listen to the stories of people who have walked through that process, it's phenomenal. And she was just excited and vibrant. And here's what I'll tell you, at the time it occurred, there were thoughts of suicide, there were all kind of things going on. And I'm convinced of this, though, that we need to give people hope on the other side. I believe this, if you're adopted, you're glad your mom and dad made that adoption decision. But I think there are ways that we can work there, and then I think we work on restricting it, whether that's through regulations of help, making it as hard as we can. I think that's the other part that we work with. You may have some better ideas, too.
So the Supreme Court has not been asked whether or not to overturn Roe. There are three decisions they could make. One is they could just say, you know what, let's overturn Roe, give it back to the states. I don't even care. I'm not making this decision. I'm sick of y'all bickering about it, which if you're a parent, you get. The second decision they could make is the actual question that they have been asked. The question that they have been asked is if Mississippi's abortion law, which is a pre-viability ban at 15 weeks, whether or not that pre-viability ban constitutes a restriction or a prohibition. Because it doesn't restrict all abortions in the state. What it does is places a restriction on them, and the Supreme Court has already determined that states can have a compelling interest in restricting abortion so long as they do not prohibit it. So the Supreme Court could weigh in on whether or not Mississippi's abortion restriction or ban, whatever they want to call it, is a restriction or a prohibition. Whatever they decide determines what the 11th Circuit does, which is why the 11th Circuit issued a stay. Because if the Supreme Court decides, no, it's a prohibition, you do it, strike it down, the 11th Circuit will likely still uphold our heartbeat bill because we are not asking them the question about whether or not it's a restriction or a prohibition. We are asking them the question, is an unborn baby a person? And does our state have a compelling interest in protecting persons in our state? So no matter how it goes, if they overturn Roe, if they strike down or uphold the Dobbs decision, the 11th Circuit can and likely will uphold our heartbeat bill. And if the other side is stupid enough to challenge it to the Supreme Court, then we will, for the first time since Roe was decided, be asking the highest court in our land the question of personhood for the unborn baby. And that is the brilliance of Georgia's heartbeat bill.
So just to clarify, so you're saying that kind of regardless of what happens, if Roe is not overturned, regardless of what happens with the Dobbs decision, the heartbeat bill looks likely to move forward at least to the Supreme Court to be decided upon again.
Yes, obviously if the other side challenges it, which I think that they will. I think what God has shown us in the last several years is that He is giving us the land that He promised to our fathers. And I don't know how Moses and the Israelites felt when they were standing on the edge of the promised land about to take possession of the land that they were promised. But it's got to feel a little bit like this, standing on the edge of Roe being overturned and babies being protected under law and being able to protect women who need help, families who need help, parents who are facing terrible or heartbreaking in utero, prenatal diagnosis, all of those things. I think no matter what, God is going to grant personhood to the unborn child because He gave them personhood.
This will be my last question, and then we'll open it up to the floor. And again, if y'all both probably have two different answers for this. As it stands today, for somebody in this room who might have a friend who is considering getting abortion or might be considering not getting abortion, what resources are available to them as it stands today to help them through that process?
So you can always reach out to GLA. We would be happy to connect you with resources in your area. We obviously know of, if not all of them, most of them. You can reach out to, you can probably Google the pregnancy help organization in your area, whatever issue it is that you're facing. If it's a domestic violence, there's a domestic violence hotline. There's, obviously you can call 911, y'all know that. But what I would tell a woman who is abortion minded is that you are strong enough to do this. You can do this. You do not have to get an abortion. And that everything is going to be okay.
I would say I'm reminded of this young lady I met this week named Kim, who is a technician who does sonograms, and how her son, and she is married now with 2 other children, and how that has really changed her life. And her message is that there is hope. We've got several crisis pregnancy centers that we support, that we're behind. And if there's somebody who just wants to sit down and talk, there will not in condemnation, but talk, and I think it's to talk fact. I would encourage, I think the story of Abby Johnson in Unplanned is really if you watch it, it will, I would encourage you to bring a group together and watch it. Just the message that's there, and maybe sometime or another, I would even have Abby Johnson come in and speak if you would. She is absolutely unreal. She's brought over 500 workers out of the abortion industry. And I'm going to share one other thing. We had a doctor that we dealt with that was actually doing abortions with my wife and I. We have 6 children and 10 grandchildren and 1 on the way. So we speak from experience on children rearing. But we confronted this doctor. We did not know that he was doing abortions. And I'll tell you what was interesting. He gave us 2 hours of nothing but excuses. And I said, let me tell you the reason we're here. The reason we're here is because we love you. And the scripture says that there are 6 things that God hates. And one of those are hands that shed innocent blood. And what are you going to do when you are asked about the innocent blood that you've shed? With that, he broke. And he talked, this is a younger doctor, he talked about arthritis in his hands. He talked about nightmares. And I just say this, there's an option to the abortion issue. It's life. And that, I will tell you that there are people right now that will adopt that child and care for that child. That's just a simple choice that you can make and not have remorse. Because I have been on counseling sessions with both sides, one that chose abortion, one that chose life. And I can tell you that the life was a whole lot better from that standpoint.
Thank you all for that. Well, who has some questions here? Yes, Mr. President, number 20 of the Atlanta Young Republicans here, Gabe Hardwick. What do you got?
First time I've got to ask a question. Thank you, finally, Howard. But I'd like to ask both Director Reed and Senator Harbin for their unique perspectives on this. And that is that on the political impact, if Roe is overturned, we hear all the time that a lot of pro-life voters are single-issue voters. Is there a chance that part of the Republican coalition evaporates if Roe is overturned and impacts its developments?
For those of you who didn't hear that, basically he's asking for single-issue voters, should Roe be overturned, would those voters who were abortion single-issue voters, would they evaporate and would we lose their votes?
I think if we do lose their votes, we have not done our job effectively because, as I mentioned before, our work is so far from over when Roe v. Wade is overturned. We need people to put their actions where their words have been for so long. For over 40 years, we've been hearing that Roe needs to be overturned. Abortion isn't right. Well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to help women who no longer have the option to get an abortion?
I've listened to multiple, I'll say, surveys done, things of that nature. Surprisingly, the younger generation is more pro-life than they've ever been. And I think that's a part where they've grown up during a period of time that they've seen this going on and they've heard about it, and they've seen, how do I say, the outcome. And I think that's the part that I think I don't know that we will lose that many. I think sometimes sometimes you want to see somebody stand for something. And I believe that if we have a hill to, I won't say die on, I believe that the hill is for life. Because here's the issue. If we do not value life at conception and in the womb, that shouldn't be the most dangerous place to be, which it is. How about when you're older? What do you do when you become old? What happens? And I think that's a part, not that I'm getting that old, but I'm just saying, you need to look. My mother is 93 years old. She is very fragile, but I value her life. And I believe that every life matters, and we need to value life. And I believe that's the message that we put across to people, that life is important.
Kelly Cash.
Foster children that are here in Georgia that are already here in post-grad.
I will say that we are continuing. I've sat with many of the foster parents. The system has problems with it, there is no doubt, and we need to step up to that plate and deal with that. I think money is one of the issues that needs to be allocated there, and we need to put the money there because it's money that we will spend there to provide for their care with, and I say top notch. We can, bear with me, we can afford for education in our colleges and in other places, but we need to deal with the 15,000. And I would not be opposed at all with working. How do we get those families? I will tell you, one of the issues with foster families, medical care was a problem. For them to get medical care, they had to go through so many hoops to get that done. I had a family who was willing to put their child, or they had 4 children and they had 2 foster children. They wanted to put them into private school, and they would not let them put them into private school. That's absolutely wrong. Is that these people are willing to pay for these kids? We need to take down the restrictions, and we need to allow that to happen. And I think that's something that we can work at the state level of opening the doors for that to be available to people, because there are people who want children. But we need to do it, and I believe this also as early as possible, because the longer a child is in the system, the longer they stay in the system. So we need to do that, how do I say, ASAP. We need to be on the top of that and get that done.
GLA's position on it is that there are issues in the foster care system that seriously need addressing, and quickly. The first step of that, unfortunately, was just convincing the legislature to listen to us. So we had to pass a data collection bill, because we would come in with statistics that we knew were true because we were getting them from, verifiable sources. But, you come in with statistics and the legislature looks at you like, okay, but how do you know that? So we had to pass a bill telling DFACS, okay, you have to collect this data. And we had the director of DFACS in a House committee meeting. The chair of the committee looked at him and said, "What, you guys don't do this already?" And he goes, "No, and we won't unless you make us." The former director of DFACS. Another thing that we need to address, which is one of our legislative agenda items next year, is correcting the safe surrender law. The safe surrender law is one that says that a woman who has a newborn can safely surrender her child anonymously at a couple of locations, a fire station, hospital, things like that. The way the system is right now, or the way that the law is right now, that child will go into DFACS custody. But we think that it would be much better and way easier for that newborn child and the family who might want to adopt him, if that child were placed into a private adoption situation instead. We're working on how that would look, but there are children who are safely surrendered who go into DFACS and have somebody who wants to adopt them, but they have to wait years to finalize their adoption because they're still in DFACS custody for whatever reason. And that just shouldn't happen. When a birth mother has terminated her rights, there's no reason for the child to go into DFACS custody.
I think Skylar was next. Skylar Akins.
Yes, I have a really quick question about
question. I'm really sure. We have a rural healthcare crisis in Georgia. Hospitals are closing left and right. What are we going to do for the women that choose to terminate their pregnancy with a coat hanger or something drastic like that, and they don't have a hospital? They don't have medical care in a rural Georgia community.
So GLA doesn't have a position officially on who should or should not be able to adopt a child based on their sexual orientation or any other factor, but we do believe that more loving homes for more children is always a good thing. And as far as the maternal mortality crisis, there is in the legislature been a committee formed to address that has been collecting data, proposing new legislation such as expanding pregnancy Medicaid, addressing the rural healthcare drought, quote unquote, but I'll let.
I think the rural issue is being somewhat addressed. Here's what's interesting. Midwives especially are not being used as they can, and midwives were doing delivery before doctors were doing deliveries, if you will. And that's something we've tried to work through because the medical profession has fought that, especially in rural areas where it is not a high at risk pregnancy. There's no reason that the midwife could not be used, and that would give them the care for pregnancy, even in the rural areas. The other that's being done and has been done is that if a doctor agrees to come back into an area, they are willing to come back into, I know one that's in Vidalia now, they will actually pay a portion of their student loans back. And I think we need more programs like that where somebody is willing to come back into I'll call it the neighborhood. That's what we ought to do. But I think the other part is that the issues, and these are the kind of things that are what I call territorial. A midwife who's delivered children and done things should be able to do that without a doctor. And there's 3 types of midwives, I've learned that are registered and all that. But that's part is that we need to be using the resources that we have, and there are people who are wanting to do that. But the other part I think is our doctors is that as high as it is to get into medical school, we could fund that, in my opinion, with, let's say you work 5 years in an area that's needful. That pays your tuition back. I think that's the type of things we need to put out there. We need to put a carrot out there to help solve the problem in rural Georgia.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. Anybody have? You got some in the back here? Blue shirt?
Yeah, good question from my guys. So this is maybe a dumb question, more like maybe a procedural or jurisdiction. So if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, obviously the states have the authority to pass a law like Harbin bill, assuming that goes forward. Is there an opportunity for the U.S. Congress at some point, if there is enough political will in the country, but not where we are now, it's obviously not where we're headed now, but in 5, 10 years, for them to pass something in the future?
My only comment is this. Right now, I think the federal government has a real problem. It takes so long to do anything. And I believe that the best government is the government that's closest to the people. And I would see this as that if it's overturned, it should come to the state and let the state handle that. And that's my hope is this, that decision would change a lot of things. Too many things are controlled by the federal government that need to belong to the states. A lot of that is tied to money, and we need to get over the cocaine of federal money because, let me say this, they have no money. They only can print money that makes your money and my money worthless. And we need to realize that the government can't give us anything because they make nothing. They take, but they don't make. And we've got to wake up to that.
All right, we got one more question, or anybody know what time it is? We got maybe 2 more questions. I don't know. Joaquin?
Say that something is bad, to go against it, but then not have a plan in place for what happens when we get power, what this issue, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, and the summer of rage happens, and we're already seeing things like pregnancy resource centers desecrated, burned to the ground, what kind of responses are there? I mean, we are a nation of law and order, yet we've seen stuff like this. What direction are we going?
Can you repeat the question? Kind of what I said?
Yeah, his question is, correct me if I'm wrong, Joaquin. Basically, throughout this process, since the rumor has it that Roe's going to be overturned, we've seen all these protests. We've seen fire bombings at these pregnancy resource centers, and then my mind's forgot what was the last. What was the actual question? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what.
We are a nation of law and order, and I believe this is that you take and you bring out whatever military or whatever is necessary, and we will not tolerate that. We either respect a land of law or either we become living in chaos. And I believe that part of the issues that are going on today is because we've not reacted to the issues when somebody burns down a city or burn down a town. I believe there should be consequences of that. And we've not been that way. But I think this also, you've got to understand, if you look at rules for radicals and some of the other propaganda stuff that's out there, they're out there stirring. I don't believe, and I may be wrong on this, that there's as many people on that far side, but I believe there are those who are out there that are stirring up everything they can stir up just to make it look bigger than it really is. And I think this issue is not quite as big as we think it is, but they want us to think it's big and they want to turn it. The other thing is this, bear with me, I would say this, the news media, I'm sorry, I believe that the Prince of England could stump his toe and they're going to send me out a blurb on my cell phone to tell me about it. I think we have had the media, they are desperate to look for content. And they need to get back to reporting properly what's going on around our nation. And right now, they are playing us for fools. And we need to find news media that tells the truth, speaks the truth, and shows the truth, and not just what they want us to see. And I'm sorry, I believe that our news media needs to clean up their act and get back to telling the truth.
Senator, I think you're talking about the fake news media. I think that's what we call them. Well, thank you guys both for coming. Please give it up for Senator Harbin and Elizabeth Reed. Thank you all both for coming. I think this is a great topic, and we appreciate y'all coming here, and we appreciate y'all coming to speak, so thank you so much. Last announcement, and then I will let everybody get back to the bar. I'm just going to reiterate, we do have an event next Wednesday. If you are one of those people who likes to talk about policy and things like that, this is a great event for you. We have about 10 spots left. The tickets are online. They are free. You just have to be a member of AYR or ACT in order to attend. And that will be at Park Bench. There's a large private room in the back that we have reserved just for us. So we would love to have you there. If you have any questions about that, love to chat with you about it. You can come talk to me or Megan Smith, who will be facilitating the discussion. But with that, thank you all again so much. We look forward to seeing you very soon, and please get back to the bar. And if you're on the board, if you could come up here so we could get a photo, that'd be great.